The Galactic Council's most prestigious research facility hummed with nervous energy as Ambassador Zethkar adjusted his ceremonial robes for the third time in 10 minutes. Around him, representatives from 17 different species whispered, in hushed tones, their various appendages fidgeting with anticipation and barely concealed dread. "The human arrives soon," announced Dr. Veltara, her crystalline voice echoing through the observation deck. The crystalline's 4 eyes focused independently on different monitors showing the approach vector. Subject designation, Marcus Chen, Terran Defense Corps, volunteered for comprehensive limits testing. Elder Protheon, of the Ethereal Collective, floated closer to the reinforced viewing window. "Remind me again why we thought this was necessary?" "Because," Zethkar replied, his scales shifting to a darker hue that betrayed his anxiety. "The humans have been in the galaxy for barely 50 cycles, yet they've already accomplished feats that should be impossible for such a young species. We need to understand their true capabilities." The testing facility below was a marvel of galactic engineering, a kilometer-wide arena capable of simulating any environment, generating gravitational fields up to 50 times standard, and withstanding forces that could crack moons. It had been designed to test the absolute limits of any known sapient species. No species had ever completed more than 60% of the trials. The massive bay doors hissed open, and Marcus Chen walked in. He appeared unremarkable by human standards, average height, lean build, wearing simple gray fatigues. But the assembled aliens had learned not to trust appearances when it came to humans. "Test sequence 1, Dr. Veltara announced. Gravitational. Endurance. Beginning at 5 times standard gravity." The human stood calmly as the field generators whirred to life. Most species would be struggling to remain upright. Marcus simply rolled his shoulders and asked through the communicator, "Is that it?" The gravity increased, 10 times standard, 15, 20. The human began to show strain, his movements becoming more deliberate, but he remained standing. At 25 times standard gravity, a force that would reduce most council species to paste, Marcus dropped to one knee but continued breathing steadily. "Impossible," whispered Counselor Thrix, his mandibles clicking rapidly. "Our strongest warriors collapse at 12 times standard." Test sequence 2, Dr. Veltara's voice had lost some of its clinical detachment. Environmental adaptation, initiating Arctic simulation. The arena transformed into a frozen wasteland, temperature dropping to minus 40 degrees Celsius. Marcus's breath became visible, but he showed no signs of distress. When the temperature continued dropping to levels that would freeze the blood of most species, the humans simply began moving in patterns they eventually recognized as exercise. "He's generating body heat through physical activity," observed Dr. Veltara. "Remarkable adaptation." The tests continued. Extreme heat that should have cooked him alive. Marcus survived by finding tiny pockets of cooler air and regulating his breathing. Toxic atmosphere simulations that would kill most life forms in seconds. The human held his breath for nearly 8 minutes while finding an emergency respirator they'd hidden in the simulation. But it was the psychological tests that truly unnerved the observers. "Test sequence 15, Dr. Veltara announced, though her voice now carried an undertone of concern. Isolation chamber, complete sensory deprivation. They watched through specialized sensors as Marcus was placed in absolute darkness, silence, and isolation. Most species began showing signs of mental breakdown within hours. The ethereals, despite their mental fortitude, typically lasted 3 days maximum. Marcus lasted 2 weeks. When they finally extracted him, he appeared calm, almost meditative. "Not bad," he said simply. "I've had longer deployments in worse conditions." The assembled aliens exchanged worried glances. Elder Protheon's form flickered with distress patterns. What kind of species voluntarily endures such conditions? The final test was the one that broke their collective nerve. "Test sequence 27, Dr. Veltara announced, her crystalline structure now showing stress fractures. Ultimate endurance trial. Subject will face simultaneous physical, mental, and environmental stressors until biological failure. The eye Arena became a hellscape of rotating challenges: crushing gravity, extreme temperatures, toxic gases, psychological warfare projections, and physical obstacles that adapted to counter every strategy. It was designed to find the absolute breaking point of any organism. Marcus lasted 18 hours. For 18 hours he adapted, overcame, and persevered through conditions that would have killed any other known species within minutes. He didn't just survive. He learned, improvised, and even seemed to find a rhythm in the chaos. When he finally collapsed, it wasn't from the environmental hazards. His body had simply run out of fuel. Even then, as medical teams rushed in, he tried to stand. "Did I pass?" he asked weakly. The observation deck was silent. Ambassador Zethkar's scales had gone completely white, a color his species only displayed when confronting the incomprehensible. "The test results," Dr. Veltara said slowly, "indicate that we did not find this human's limits. We found the limits of our testing facility." Elder Protheon's form solidified into a posture of deep contemplation. "Perhaps," he said quietly, "some questions should not be asked." In the weeks that followed, the test results were classified at the highest levels. The facility was quietly decommissioned, its data locked away in the deepest vaults of the Galactic Council archives. When other species asked why the comprehensive human testing program had been discontinued, the official response was always the same: insufficient funding. The truth was simpler and far more terrifying. They had sought to map the boundaries of human capability and discovered there might not be any boundaries to map. The humans, for their part, seemed genuinely puzzled by the sudden lack of interest in their abilities. Marcus Chen was quietly reassigned to exploration duties, where his unusual resilience would be properly appreciated. The galaxy, meanwhile, tried very hard not to think about what other limits the humans might be willing to show them. Some doors once opened could never be closed again.